Hey everyone! This week we are releasing a double episode. We recorded an episode entirely in Spanish and then used AI to translate it into English. We tested a bunch of dubbing tools, but the results were awful. Even 11 Labs, which is supposed to be the best in the game, didn't sound good at all. YouTube's is still in beta, and you have to be selected. And let's just say that we are not Diary of a CEO, at least not yet. So here's what we did instead. We used Whisper from OpenAI to transcribe the Spanish audio, translated the transcript into English using ChatGPT, and then turned it into natural sounding audio with Gemini 2.5. Fun fact, the original Spanish version was about 55 minutes long, but ChatGPT managed to summarize it down to just 17 minutes. This episode is the English version, and if you'd like to hear the Spanish one, check out the other episode we released today. And let us know in the comments what you think.
Good morning, Juan.
Good morning, Ivan.
How are you doing?
Very well, thanks.
Thanks for welcoming us into your home today. As you know, we're using you as our guinea pig. Our goal is to start creating content in another language, in this case Spanish, and then use artificial intelligence to transform it into English, so we can reach our broader market and do interviews and all that in the future. So you're our first test. I hope it works. And today's topic is also something I've been wanting to talk about on the podcast for a while. We already mentioned it in one of the episodes you participated in, that we started a venture together called GouBlue that didn't work out. And I'd like to dig a bit deeper into the topic from your point of view, the process, and also because you were one of the initial founders, while I joined later. So I'd also like to hear the story from the beginning. So maybe we can start by talking about where GouBlue came from and how it started.
Perfect. Well, thanks for inviting me again, especially with these autumn views we have here. And yes, I'm happy to share the story of GouBlue.
How did GouBlue start?
Well, GouBlue started back in 2018 when I decided to do a master's degree, an MBA, in Madrid at the EOI. And as part of the master's, we had to develop an entrepreneurship project. When I started the MBA, my goal was already to try to build a business, and the MBA for me was kind of a tool for that. So when we began the entrepreneurship project, you obviously had to apply all the knowledge acquired during the MBA and create a project or an idea that could potentially have business traction, to present your strategy, how you'd scale the solution, etc. So within that educational framework, we decided to start working on a mobility project. The basic idea was to create a carpooling system for companies that were co-located. We had identified a problem in Madrid where many companies are clustered in certain areas, and although public transport is widely used, depending on where someone lives and works, commuting can take up to an hour and a half each day, so we saw an opportunity for optimization. Also because company parking lots were saturated, if we could get people who owned cars to share them, we could also optimize parking space for companies, giving priority to those willing to carpool. That's how GouBlue began as an educational project that when we saw it had some real market traction, we decided to try it in the real world.
For listeners who don't know the difference between carpooling and car sharing, because many might think, oh, that's car sharing, but it's not the same. What is carpooling? How does it differ from car sharing?
Well, our goal with carpooling was that several people, basically there's one driver who shares their vehicle.
The owner, right?
The owner, yes, ideally. Though nowadays there are other modalities, but in this case, yes, the owner decides to share their vehicle with others for the commute from home to work. That's the concept of carpooling. It started in the US, and in fact, we had the opportunity to meet a company doing that when we went to San Francisco.
And we copied them, right?
Yes, partly. A big part of their business model and how they developed their algorithm inspired us a lot in designing ours. That's the concept of carpooling we worked with. Then there are other models like car sharing where someone uses an app to access a vehicle available for use through a subscription. A person uses the vehicle, it could be a car, bike, or scooter from point A to B and leaves it there for someone else to use later. So it's also vehicle sharing, but more in the sense of one-time trips. Carpooling is, I'm going from A to B anyway, and I choose to share my ride with others along the way.
Perfect. How many founders were you?
We were 4. The MBA project teams had to have 3 to 4 people, so we fit that.
How did you manage such a big founding team? Usually the recommendation is 2, or maybe 3 at most.
There were really 2 phases. The educational phase, which went pretty smoothly, And then the real-life entrepreneurship phase, which was more complicated. In the educational phase, the distribution of roles was partly guided by the MBA structure. There were financial controls, strategy, product development, etc. So each of this took a role, but once we decided to actually build the product, find customers, launch it, and gain traction, that's when things got complicated.
Damn sales.
Exactly. We'll talk more about that later. So initially, management was simple because there were no conflicts of interest. But once those arose about how the company would be structured, who would spend time on what, balancing work and personal life, things became more difficult. In an academic setting, you have deadlines and clear expectations, but in real life, it's a different game.
And in the MBA, there's authority from the institution, so everyone follows the rules, right? But once you're on your own, conflicts and differing opinions appear, right?
Exactly.
We were talking about solving the problem for co-located companies that wanted to offer employees a carpooling option to optimize space and reduce pollution, since Madrid is one of the most polluted cities in Spain. What solution did you propose?
The solution consisted of a mobile app and a web app. The mobile app was for end users, drivers, and passengers, and it worked like a small social network where drivers could post their daily routes and passengers could request a ride for a share of fuel or logistical costs.
So basically, like BlaBlaCar, right?
Yes, but BlaBlaCar does long-distance trips. We focused on short daily commutes. So the incentive wasn't mainly cost-sharing, though partly that, but also optimizing parking spaces, reducing the number of cars on the road, and lowering CO2 emissions. I don't remember the exact stats, but we found the average car occupancy was around 1.2 people, so filling those empty seats had multiple benefits: fewer cars during rush hours, more available parking, less pollution, and shared costs. We even considered giving users eco-points for contributing to a cleaner city.
So a kind of gamification to encourage abuse.
Exactly. And companies were also interested because the web app provided reports on how their employees were using the service, CO2 savings, and mobility stats. That data helped them manage their corporate carbon footprint and even create internal incentive programs or competitions between co-located companies.
There was also a difference in our algorithm compared to BlaBlaCar. BlaBlaCar does match on demand. When a driver posts a trip and the passenger searches, they match instantly. But our system followed a different model, inspired by those US competitors, right? How did that work?
I'd say we didn't exactly copy it.
We optimized it, maybe.
Yes, because San Francisco isn't Madrid. We had similarities, but we built our own algorithm using Euclidean distance calculations via geolocation APIs, and an algorithm we developed with some elements of what could be called artificial intelligence. You can explain that better since you were the brain behind it, but in short, our system matched drivers and passengers efficiently considering preferences like route deviation, smoking, music, or talkativeness. We achieved very fast processing times, just a few minutes, and a high success rate. It was one of the parts we were proudest of.
We're very proud of that algorithm, even if it's now just sitting there dead on GitHub. But yes, unlike BlaBlaCar's on-demand model, ours ran once or twice a day, after everyone had entered their preferences. That allowed us to make global optimizations using those algorithms and what we called AI. Not generative AI, which didn't exist yet, but a genetic algorithm, which is still AI. This optimized matching much better. BlaBlaCar might miss perfect matches that appear 5 minutes later, but we processed everything together at the end of the day. Clients were initially skeptical. They wanted instant matches, but the model actually performed better. We were really proud of that. Now, if I remember correctly, you started with B2C. Why did you start there and later switch to B2B?
We started with B2C because we thought it would be easier to connect individuals directly before approaching companies. The initial idea was to have a BlaBlaCar for urban commutes within Madrid, but the challenge of B2C is well known. Building critical mass is very hard. You can't really test a carpooling platform with just a few dozen users. You need hundreds. Friends and family can help, but they're biased. They won't give critical feedback. Plus, people commuting to work don't have patience to wait and see if someone will show up. So we realized B2B offered more reliability for both sides, since companies backed it.
And companies already bring you the users, right?
Exactly. For us, B2B provided a safer testing ground and direct feedback. Departments could test internally and give structured input. It was easier and more stable financially, too, because companies could pay subscriptions. Later, we evolved to a B2B2C model, taking a small fee per trip as well. It was more scalable.
And the competition. Did anyone else have a similar solution?
Yeah, there were startups in Spain, especially one group in Valencia.
Who also died.
Yes.
But they were the strongest back then.
True, we studied the market, attended accelerators, startup events, and met 2 startups in Valencia and Madrid doing similar things. I think the Madrid one is still alive.
Yes, they are. They even changed names recently. They used to be called Hoop Carpool, now something like Tribu. They've survived COVID and everything.
Huge respect for them. We remember analyzing them closely, and they've done great. But honestly, I liked our product better, especially the UX and algorithm.
Yes, clients in our accelerator program actually chose us over Hoop Carpool because our product was superior, both in design, thanks to our UX designer, and technically because of intermediate stops.
Exactly. Picking up people along the route without deviating too much. That was key.
We had a great product, maybe too great for an MVP. But let's talk about go-to-market strategy. Was it cold outreach, knocking on doors?
Yes, basically. We started calling large companies and industrial parks. I remember you called one near Alicante.
They were the ones who told us about the parking issue. Initially, we hadn't even identified that as a benefit. When they asked, "How do you solve the parking problem?" I said, "What parking problem?" And they stopped replying. Later, we realized it was a big issue for business parks. Lesson learned, never say, "We don't have that." Say, "Yes, we're working on it," then build it.
Exactly. We later mapped all industrial parks in Spain, prioritized those near Madrid, and also targeted municipalities promoting green mobility. That led to many meetings, some successful, others not. Eventually, through those efforts, we got into Bankia's accelerator program, which really helped.
When you say Bankia backed us, what do you mean?
They had an innovation accelerator program. Each year, they invited startups with solutions relevant to them. They selected us because they liked our proposal, especially for managing parking, encouraging carpooling, and reducing CO2. After reviewing our features, they saw a perfect fit. That's how we were accepted and worked with them for a year.
Some of our listeners might be wondering whether they should join an accelerator or not. Looking back, would you recommend it?
I'd say yes, depending on your stage. The main value is networking. You meet amazing people solving similar problems, share ideas, and get perspective. The downside is bureaucracy, having to follow processes of success, as they call them. But in startups, what you need the most is speed.
That's why we sometimes called it the decelerator.
Exactly. Reporting takes time away from building, but still, accelerators give you exposure, pitching to large audiences, and credibility that helps later. So it depends.
Personally, aside from YC and similar big names, the key is networking. We rejected some programs that required us to relocate, like Lanzadera in Valencia, but now I see that being on site would have made the networking much more valuable. If I could redo it, I'd go in person. But at the time, we all had jobs in Madrid, so relocating wasn't realistic. Anyway, let's move on. You were 4 founders. Did you ever hire anyone?
Well, we were 4 founders, which is a lot. I think most people would agree 4 founders is crazy. We didn't really stop to reflect between school project and real startup. Everyone was excited, but the reality is hard. You work long hours, often with little feedback, and it's not the smooth ride you imagine. Plus, when everyone has jobs and personal lives, it's tough to maintain commitment. If I could advise anyone, I'd say reflect carefully before jumping in. Each founder needs a clear role and accountability.
That doesn't mean a CTO can't sell.
No, of course not.
But each founder should own one key area. Otherwise, you get confusion, frustration, and friction. In my view, internal conflicts and unclear roles are among the biggest killers of startups. If I started again, I'd reduce the number of founders to the minimum. Yet, you did the opposite. You added me.
True, but that was because I was the only software engineer and we were building a software product. The others were brilliant engineers too, but not in software. So we needed help.
And we couldn't do pair programming then.
No, there was no AI-assisted coding like today. We had to code everything ourselves. We used a hybrid framework for Android and iOS to speed things up, plus backend, security integration, and web components. Lots of work. Bringing you in was the best decision I made. That was my main contribution, bringing Ivan and Sanyudo on board.
Yes, Sanyudo, who also appeared on the podcast. If listeners are loyal, they'll know him. His episode is still #1. We hired him later as our UX designer, and together we built a monster, maybe too big since we focused so much on the product without validating the market first. We also hired my friend Jose Alberto to help with implementation since we couldn't handle it all.
Well, not everything.
True, we still handle architecture, UX with Sanyudo and the algorithm ourselves, but we outsourced most of the app and web implementation.
The web we actually built ourselves, mostly the mobile app and part of the backend were outsourced. But we did it very efficiently. I think the whole thing cost us less than $10,000.
I think so, yes. He gave us a friend's price. And later, we even had a potential buyer who valued it at 100,000 euros. They couldn't pay, but they saw it as a fair price, 10 times what it cost.
It was a beast.
It was. So, in your opinion, when did GouBlue's decline begin?
Everything happened fast. We officially founded the company at the end of 2019, that we'd already been working for a year. The decline, I think, started with internal dynamics. Different visions among founders, tension between technical and non-technical members, communication issues and prioritizing tasks, etc. Having a democracy in a startup doesn't work. Too many opinions. Emotional tension started to outweigh strategic focus.
It's like in a relationship. A business partnership is a romantic relationship without sex. If there's no trust, it breaks.
Totally. That's exactly it.
So, when did things start falling apart?
Besides team dynamics, COVID hit us hard. We were in Bankia's accelerator program, and the pandemic forced them to advance the pilot deadline. They realized soon no one would be carpooling. By March 2020, the world shut down. By May, the pilot was canceled. Then remote work, lockdowns, everything froze. Bankia couldn't test our product. The team morale dropped. Eventually, one of our teammates, Sanudo, said, "Guys, thanks for the ride, but this is my stop." That was the wake-up call we needed. Others also moved on, and we decided together to stop operations.
How did that experience affect you, professionally and personally?
Professionally, it was one of the best experiences of my life. You learn a lot, dealing with stress, ambiguity, conflict, and self-discovery. You also learn where you're strong or weak. It's amazing to build something from scratch, meet people, gain others' trust from business angels to accelerators. Personally, it's a roller coaster, highs and lows. The hardest part wasn't technical, it was emotional, dealing with conflict, frustration, and the limits of your control.
If you could start GouBlue or another startup again, what would you do differently?
I wouldn't start without really knowing my co-founders. Not just skills, but alignment of vision and commitment. Everyone must understand the effort, 70 to 80% of your time, no free weekends. Experience helps. And what would I do again? Probably join an accelerator again, especially in person. I'd also call you and Sanudo again.
Sanudo would probably say no now. He's too comfortable. I've tried. So, Sanudo, if you're listening, come on, man.
Seriously, Sanudo, we need you. And yes, I'd definitely build everything in the cloud again. It was fast, cheap, and scalable. There are many things I'd repeat, but the key lessons are what not to repeat.
Like the code we still have collecting dust, we should do something with it. Anyway, that's all, Juan. Thanks a lot for your time. I hope the video works so we can publish it too. I'll probably see you in another episode. This is your third one.
Yes, third one already.
Sorry we still don't make money yet, otherwise we could pay you. But at least it gives you some visibility if you ever want to start something again.
Nah, it's a pleasure. I'm happy to share our stories if they help someone even better.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.